Hey guys, I'm Shanna with The Best Groceries. Today I'm going to be pruning an unruly tomato plant in my garden, and I'm going to show you how I do that. Now there are two reasons why you would want to prune a tomato plant. The first is to control the direction of growth of the plant. So specifically with the rise garden, you'd mostly be looking at keeping the plant away from your lights because the condensation caused by the plant can wreak havoc with the electrical for your lights. Or you might have your plant shading other plants in your garden and you want to kind of control it so that all your plants get some light. The second reason you would prune is if you have any parts of your plant that are diseased or damaged, you want to cut those off because they're working against the plant and not for it. What you're going to want to use for pruning your plants is something with a nice sharp blade. You want to make sure the blade slices cleanly through the stem and it's not crushing it at all. So I've used a regular old utility knife a bunch of times, it works great, or you can use something like a little pair of garden clippers. Make sure that if you're transferring your tool from another job, you wipe the blades with some rubbing alcohol so that you're not moving dirt or diseases from one plant to another. Now let's get down to eye level with the plant that I'm pruning and get started. So this plant that I'm pruning is a variety of tomato called Tiny Tim. This is the first time I've grown it and it's not as tiny as the name would lead you to expect. So this plant starts way in the bottom over here. I had to put a fence across the back and this whole thing here is all this tomato plant, including this. And then I've got a little new tomato plant over here of a much more reasonable size variety that is not being pruned. So my two objectives in pruning today are number one, get the plant away from the lights. Number two, remove some sections of the plant that are shading my other plants so that I can grow more than just this one tomato plant. All right, so let's get started with the parts of the plant that are growing in or towards the light. All right, so what you want to do is you want to cut the plant all the way back to the next stem. You don't want to cut it, for example, in the middle of the stem here. You want to cut it all the way back there like that. So I just bring my compost bin over when I'm doing this. Clip those things off, shove them in the compost, and we're cleaning up as we go. All right, my next stem in the lights, this one here, and I can decide how far back I want to prune it, but I see that I've got flowers here and a little tomato coming down here. So I'm going to clip off these two higher things here, just like that, and of course if I'm not holding them, I might even just lose them forever, but there we go. That's done. All right, now I've got actual flowers growing into the light. It doesn't matter. I cannot grow tomatoes in my lights, so I'm going to chop that whole section off. And you can do this in stages too. You don't have to decide to chop off huge pieces at the beginning. You can start with little bits, and then as you go, you might decide that it needs a little bit more. You can do another cut even on the same stem is fine. So keep cutting like this, all the ones that are pretty up high. And then I've got also some growing behind the fence here that I don't think is very practical. I don't know how I'm going to pollinate them or get access to them to get the tomatoes or anything, so I might as well just get rid of those entirely. And anything that I see that's kind of going towards the lights, that's going to get there soon. These things grow so fast, so you know, if I leave anything, it's going to be up at the lights before you know it. The other thing is that when you prune something, the plant will redirect its energy towards what's remaining in the plant. So you're not losing productivity of the plant, you're just redirecting it. So there's no harm in cutting more off. All right, so I finished pruning everything that was sort of going into the lights, and now I'm going to start pruning to allow more light for my other plants. So down here, I've got a basil plant here that's kind of, you can see if you move the plant away, that's more light. This part of the tomato plant is shading it, so I'm just going to cut that section off. I've got mint down here, but that thing grows like a weed, so I'm not really going to worry about that too much. And I've got tomatoes here. They're close to my other basil, but I can see there's still a good amount of light there, so I'm going to leave that one alone for right now. However, over here in this corner, I have a cucumber plant, which you can't even see. This plant is going to interfere with the cucumber growing upwards. Sorry, this branch going to interfere with the cucumber, and this branch is kind of coming over towards the front. So I'm going to cut those off. Even though they have flowers, if I cut them off, my plant will decide that it needs to make more flowers, and it will make me more flowers. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to get rid of sort of all of the branches. Whoopsie. Don't do that to your poor cilantro. I'm going to get rid of all the branches that are coming over here because this is not where I want my plant to grow. So cutting them all back to the next joint, I don't know what you call it, in the plant. Then I got this thing. Wow, look at this monster. It could be all the way out of my garden if I let it go. Okay, so that one's all the way back to, owie, stab, careful, don't injure yourself. Ideally, you'd want to prune little bits of the plant on a regular basis, but if it gets away from you, you're safe to prune up to 1/3 of the plant at any time. I'm going to stop there for the day. So now my tomato plant is a much more reasonable size. Now my cucumber plant has a lot of light, which is lovely, and my basil has more light. If you learned something or found this video interesting, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more videos about the Rise Garden.